Good evening, folks, and welcome to Admissions Live, the weekly web show for college admissions professionals. We are part of the Higher Ed Live network that is made possible by ED Universe Media. Tune into Admissions Live on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on higheredlive.com, and you can join the conversation using the Twitter hashtag HigherEdLive. I'm your host, Ashley Budd. You might know me as Ashley Hennigan, but I have been on hiatus to get hitched, so I am back now. And tonight I'm joined by Chris Harris, who's Senior Assistant Director at Marlborough College. And we will be chatting in just a moment about this past week's National Association for College Admission Counseling's annual conference. But we can't do that without first giving a shout out to the sponsors that make Admissions Live possible. Admissions Live is made possible by M. Stoner, a marketing communications agency focused on higher education web strategy and development since 2001. Next month, M. Stoner is presenting a 3-part web analytics series. You know the data that you're collecting is important, but how do you put that to use? How do you align this data with institutional objectives? How do you take advantage of Google's advanced features like customized reporting, event clicks, or funnels? You can get all the answers to these questions and sharpen your knowledge of Google Analytics with M. Stoner's webinar series. We're tweeting the link out to that now, or you can learn more about the series and register. Institutions can register for individual webinars and receive a discount by signing up for all 3. Admissions Live is sponsored by Zinch, a service of Chegg that helps colleges and universities save time and money while connecting them with best fit students during their college search. Zinch partners save up to 90% of the recruitment cost associated with generating a single enrollment for their institution while putting students first in the recruitment outreach. You can email outreach@zinch.com or tweet @socialadmission to get in touch with your institution's dedicated Zinch representative today. Admissions Live is also made possible by Welcome to College, where college visits are made simple. The mission at Welcome to College is to help students find colleges where they will flourish. The team at Welcome to College believes it's all in the visit, and they've created free web and mobile applications to plan, rate, share, and compare the entire visit process. Parents and high school counselors can create an account to share their impressions too. Go ahead and check out the new partners page at welcometocollege.com today. All right, so I'm ready to get all the scoop from Chris's whirlwind trip to Toronto. But first I want to give him a chance to introduce himself. Chris, welcome to the show, and tell me how you found your way to Marlborough College, and then how you found your way to Toronto last week.
Hey Ashley, thanks for having me. I've been in higher ed for about 3 years. I started out working as a tour guide in the Office of Admission at Champlain College. After I graduated in 2011, I moved on to Clark University, was there for about 2 years, and then moved to Marlborough, moved back to Vermont. And I've been with Marlborough for about 2 months. And in terms of how I ended up at Toronto, or at NACAC in Toronto, it was kind of an interesting story. Our office is relatively new, and our new dean started a week and a half before NACAC. So it fell to me to go to be the one representing Marlborough at the conference.
Well, lucky you for that. That is even more of a whirlwind than I expected from you. So just 2 months at Marlborough, and you're already at the premier industry conference. So good for you. Now, I understand that was your first experience at a NACAC conference, but not your first experience with other higher ed conferences. Tell me a little bit about what other conferences you've attended and how the conference last week compares.
Yeah, so I was a first-timer at the NACAC in Toronto, but yeah, as you mentioned, it's not my first rodeo when it comes to professional development conferences. I've been to a couple NACACs, the First Timers Conference at NACAC, as well as the annual conference up in Maine, in Biddeford, Maine, last year, and as well as some of the other ACACs, more regional, statewide ACACs, the NACAC, which is in New York, as well.
Awesome. And so, what would you say is some of the biggest differences between the regional affiliate conferences and the national annual conference? Is there a I know there's a difference in size, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that. But is there a different vibe? Are there different kinds of sessions? What did you think?
Yeah, so overall, I felt the vibe, the atmosphere was pretty similar. It's a bunch of admissions professionals all gathering together to learn more about the industry. The biggest differences that I found were, as you mentioned, in size. NACAC is significantly bigger than the more regional events, and so I was just kind of astounded at the amount of people that were in attendance, and really, especially in each of the seminars that I thought would have little attendance ended up having some of the biggest attendance of my experience. The other difference is, I think, in the type of seminars or educational seminars that are offered. I find the regional ones are a little more tailored to newbies, to first timers, to people that have only been in the industry 1 to 2 years, whereas the NACAC seem to be tailored more towards your associate deans, your dean, your directors, as well as your deans of admissions.
Yes, I have felt that similar vibe when I attended last year. Um, and your school is part of a larger network of, well, not super large, but a network of colleges that change lives, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We're one of the 40 colleges that change lives.
Yeah, so they had a meeting or some kind of reception at the conference that you were able to attend. What was that like, being able to network with those other colleges that you might not run into at a regional?
It was great. So the CTCL organization does a lot of college fair tours across the country. And so it's good not only to get to know new reps for those colleges, but also to see the old reps that you've met while you're doing those tours. The reception itself was really cool. It was in one of the hotels nearby the convention center, in a giant ballroom, and I ended up doing a little networking with the college counselors that we invited, as more so than with the actual college reps. I ended up taking tickets, checking people in for the majority of the time, so it was a lot of very quick, to the point conversations, and then trying to follow up with them afterward via email or via phone calls if they're in my travel territory. But it was really nice getting to know people, not specific, or not only specifically from my travel territory, from my recruitment territory, but from really across the entire nation as well. I met a lot of very friendly, very nice reps from Texas. It seemed like there was a lot of Texas reps at the fair, or Texas counselors at the fair, but from really all over the country as well.
Very cool. Now, were you the only one there from your institution?
I was, yeah, the
You
only one.
were. So being there, your first time at this massive conference, and you're on your own, what kind of things helped you navigate your way through all the different sessions and events that were going on?
Yeah, so some little back explanation. The reason why I was the only one in attendance is mainly because we're really small. Our college only has about 250 students, 300 students on average, and there's only 4 admissions counselors in the office. So we have myself, 2 other admissions counselors, and then the dean. And so it's really hard for us to send more than one. Now, in terms of what helped me navigate being on my own, I actually found the NACAC app to be very, very, very helpful in terms of helping me set up my schedule, crossing or linking it straight to my iCalendar, so that I could link it to my iPhone, really. And I finally upgraded from the last session from a dumb phone, so that's great. But yeah, that really, really, really helped me out in terms of scheduling, in terms of keeping an idea of where I needed to be at what times, but also keeping me updated about alerts that were happening. And a good example of that was when I was about to leave the fair, got an update on my phone that said the major highway going to the airport was closed. so allocate about 2 hours to get to the airport, which is very helpful because that's about how long it took me to get to the airport. 20 minute drive turned into about 2.5 hours.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty sophisticated for conferences. You don't see that kind of technology being used unless you're at a tech conference. So we'll have to give props to NACAC for having something as sophisticated as that.
absolutely. And I found in terms of how scheduling beforehand or partitioning your day out beforehand was very helpful. Instead of just getting there or using the book guide that they gave you to just kind of do it last minute, planning beforehand definitely helped as well.
Awesome. So before we get into some of your favorite sessions and what some of that buzz was around the conference, tell me a little bit about Toronto and the city, the venue that was used. Did you have much time to explore? Did they keep you indoors the whole time? What did you think?
Yeah, so I love Toronto. Absolutely loved it. It's kind of fell in love with it when I was there. It reminds me a lot of Boston with a mix of Minneapolis and some Chicago, but with the atmosphere and the kind of go, go, go mentality of New York. I know it's just kind of like a smorgasbord of everything you could want in a city. Um, Now, in terms of the venue itself, I actually found it a little difficult to find out exactly where I needed to go, mainly because I was staying on the opposite side of the convention center. So I had to kind of traverse through the convention center and ask some friendly locals how to get to where I needed to go. But overall, I thought the venue was great. It was spacious. The seats were relatively comfortable for the seminars. Um, and everything seemed to be very, very well organized in terms of where you checked in, the materials that you received upon check-in, and then the direction you received to how to get to your fares and how to navigate the area.
Awesome. And did they have you scanning into each session? Were sessions filling up and people getting bumped out this year, or did it seem like there was enough space in each session for folks?
So they did have a scanning, and it for the most part, it seemed like there was enough space. They kind of ran into a big incident after the Naviance or the Naviance. That's it. The Naviance session where people were definitely they're running into some space issues. There was a huge line. People that were in for the previous seminar had to leave and get in line, and there's no guarantee that they would be able to actually get into that session. But overall, I mean that's just one example. Overall, I think it went pretty smoothly.
Very cool. So let's talk about some of those sessions that you attended. And I don't want to have to pick the order for you, but what sessions were really informative? Which ones did you enjoy? And I know that you attended some sessions that didn't get a lot of press coverage, which I think is great because for those of us that didn't have a chance to attend, we really were only we had the Chronicle there, and we had Inside Higher Ed, but they were covering a lot of the same stories. So you're going to be able to give us the inside scoop on some of these sessions that weren't covered in the press. And I'll let you run with that. And I also I'm going to step away for a second to get my power cord so that we don't go down.
Okay. So for me, the most informative sessions, or it was actually a tie between the partnering with community colleges, the transfer success, and supporting young admissions professionals. Through part of my responsibilities at Marlborough is to really take point when it comes to transfer recruiting. It's something that I don't have a lot of experience in, but something that I've been asked to do. And so for me, it was a good jumping off point of learning how to effectively recruit transfer students in what areas, and along that note, how close or what proximity they are to where your institution is located. But it also gave me a good idea of how to build and maintain articulation agreements, especially when the curriculum that defined those articulation agreements in the first place changes. Just really kind of how to kind of go with the flow and being flexible and open to the change that does happen after year after year. In regards to the supporting young admissions professionals, as I said, our office is new, and so the 2 out of 4 of us are alumni of the university, not myself, but 2 others of the other counselors. And for me, it was a good, again, a good way of learning how to affect. And in my position, I'm the middle manager, I guess. It's kind of weird when you only have 4 people in the office, but you know, it was good for me to learn how to effectively manage people that are counselors that are new to the industry, that may not have been involved in the admissions office when they were a student, and how to help them build the necessary skills that will enable them to be successful in everything from planning travel, physically doing travel, reading applications, managing their time between their primary, secondary, and tertiary job responsibilities, and then maintaining how to maintain projects over the summer so you stay active and engaged.
Awesome. So it sounds like that was a good crash course for you, and that they actually gave you some tangible resources in the session, which there's not much more you can ask for than that. What other things? I know you were at the Naviance session, so we're going to want to talk about that. Was there any other sessions that really stood out?
Yeah, the Google session seemed to stand out in my mind, mainly because I was interested to see how they were going to continuously improve the Google Plus product, as well as the Google Hangouts feature, which we are using right now. And what I was really, really excited to hear was that they were developing a Q&A feature, a question and answer feature for the Hangouts, so that viewers could actually participate in the conversation and ask the people that are being filmed to questions live.
Yeah, it's something here that we're really excited about too. Going back and forth with different platforms can be confusing for some of our viewers, so looking forward to having everything integrated here. And it was really surprising for me to hear that Google was there presenting, and I believe they were there with Duke, and kind of co-presenting how Duke was using some of the suite of tools that they offer. So I think that's the first time I've heard of one of the major players in Silicon Valley making their way to a NACAC conference. So that's pretty cool.
The interesting thing about the Duke case study was the amount, the variety of ways in which they're utilizing Google Plus. Doing it using people's iPhones to do interviews during sports games, to doing alumni and faculty chats where really the entire community gets engaged in this conversation, regardless of whether you're an alumni, a current student, a prospective student, a faculty or staff member. I mean, it really, really was great to see people being creative and using the tool in unique ways.
Awesome, yeah. We'll have to see if we can get them to present to us sometime. But I appreciate you giving us the tip and the inside scoop on that. And so tell me a little bit more about the behind-the-scenes look at Naviance. Now, for our viewers that aren't familiar with Naviance, this thing is taking over high schools across America. It's a great tool for high school counselors to keep all of their students who are college-bound organized, to keep all of their school documents that need to be sent to universities in one place, for students to make requests to send those documents out, and then there's a whole component of college search that's built into the system too. So I know that it's a big challenge when it's implemented into the high schools on the counseling side of things. School counselors, there's a pretty steep learning curve amongst school counselors with all different experiences and age ranges and those kinds of things. It's not something that has a similar interface on the college side. So it's really hard for college counselors to be able to relate to the high school counselors what they need to do and how it all works together. So great that they were presenting so that I think both sides could get a look at what the product is that so many people are using. But what was your take on that?
Yeah, so I've actually had the pleasure of using Naviance before. I did an internship when I was still a student with the Vermont Common School in college counseling. And the VCS used Naviance in helping the director of college counseling manage her caseload, and myself as well. For those of you who are not familiar with Naviance, I mean, Ashley just gave you a very, very detailed explanation of it, and the only addition I would add is think of it as a CRM software, customer relation management software, just for the high school side of things. Whereas, college you use Hobson's or Slate or Datatel. Naviance is exactly that. So for me, the session was actually more of a recap of what I learned when I was physically using it during my internship. But it was good to see both sides of the desk, if you will, of how, UBC, the University of British Columbia, as well as the high school side of things, how each of them use the software in different ways, and how the data, at least on the college side, how the data is received from, I believe Naviance is a Hobson's company, from Hobson's into their CRM, and how it's uploaded and tied to the profiles that they already have for their students. On the high school side, the thing that most amazes me about Naviance is how seamlessly you can manage everything from recommending schools to giving the students information on where past students have gone, how they did in terms of other students that have applied to that college or university within the context of their school, using scatter plots. Really, really cool. I highly recommend checking out. But then going through the entire process of collecting valuable information like teacher recommendations, transcripts, all that good stuff, and then sending them off to the colleges with really a click of a button.
Awesome. And so did you find that Naviance was pitching anything to the college or school counselors that were there? I know that there are some add-ons, especially on the college side, where schools might opt to advertise or send messages to students who might be good matches for them. Did they get into that, or was that left up on the exhibitor floor to talk more business?
I didn't notice anything in that regard, but I could have just missed it.
Yeah.
I know it is, again, a feature you can do, mainly because we do it at Marlboro, or we have in the past, but I didn't notice it during the seminar. It was more kind of an informational how do we use it on both sides.
Great. Well, that sounds really helpful,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't be surprised if our buddies who are on our side at NACAC, who are going through these presentation proposals, are making sure that they're giving us really good information that we can take away and not getting a sales pitch all day long. So it's good to hear that even when you get those corporate partners in the educational sessions, that they're actually delivering real value. So
I do want to give a shout out sorry to interrupt, I do want to give a shout out to the presenter from UBC. He had a killer soundtrack greeting everybody when they went in, and throughout the entire presentation, it was from Star Wars. And it was a great way to wake up in the morning and get create a lighthearted atmosphere.
Awesome. Easy way to make friends.
Yeah.
So was there any other kind of buzz at the conference? I know that the press had focused a lot on international recruitment and the discussion of commissioned agents that we see a lot in China. So I'll tweet out a couple of those articles that are out there. Certainly college cost is always a big discussion, whether people actually are coming up with solutions or not. I'm not sure. But what was your sense of what people were really buzzing about in between the sessions, and they're having those kind of side work conversations?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, some of the biggest buzz came from the international world of how to approach international recruiting, as you mentioned, focusing on prospect pools as well was another one, of how to effectively recruit using different pools. Everybody knows the admissions funnel, but your prospect pool, your inquiry pool, so yada yada yada. How to effectively recruit those students and create a higher yield, especially when you consider the amount of money that an institution spends versus the amount of return they get on it. Mm-hmm. And then transfers also seem to be kind of a budding topic of conversation of how to effectively recruit transfers as well.
Awesome. And so it sounds like the challenges are still there with populations changing and business models kind of needing to change amongst our organizations to recruit more students from different areas or different times in their educational plan, whether they're transferring in or they're coming back to school. So no big surprises there. Last year, I attended a session from the Common App that got all sorts of, I don't even know how to put it lightly, but there were lots of boos and yelling and arguments in the Common App session last year when they introduced CA4, and now that CA4 is out and it has some issues, I'm wondering if what the sentiment was, or what the feeling was around the Common App chatter during the conference this year.
Yeah, it was negative, to put it diplomatically. Some of the sessions, you could definitely feel some hostility and some serious concerns coming from both sides, from colleges and from high schools. Mm-hmm. So definitely overall, I would say it was negative.
As a first-timer to the conference, I want your impression of the exhibitor hall that NACAC puts on. What is that thing like? What was it like this year? And how does that compare to other conferences?
It's a madhouse. Yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot going on in the exhibitor conference. That was the first time. I mean, I'd always heard about fairs, exhibitor fairs like that, for like car shows, but I never think I'd actually go to one. And I was really kind of blown away by how many exhibitors were there, but how extravagant their sections of the hall were. I mean, yes. Full-on lounges, TVs. I mean, it was great, especially for the CRM exhibitors that were giving hands-on demos of their product. So it was actually great to go in and tinker around and really get that experience. But at the same time, it was a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it is crazy. I'm rocking my Denver swag from Zinch. I had this really nice jacket last year from them, and I was blown away not only with the exhibitor hall, but the receptions that a lot of these partners will put on for their college partners who are attending. And so I know last year in Denver there was like a video game that you could ski with, and there was foosball and all sorts of kind of wacky things. Was there anything wacky at Toronto that we missed out on?
Yeah, the kookiest thing I saw was one of the exhibitors had a stuffed bear with a like a flat brimmed hat turned to the side, and it was named Justin Bieber, and they were offering people the opportunity to take a picture with Justin Bieber. There are also like prize the opportunity to win prizes if you got a hockey puck in a small little hole. A bunch of raffles. I didn't see any video games, but I saw a lot, so I could have just not remembered it.
Very cool. So just kind of wrapping up some other things that I'm curious about. Was there anything at the conference that you were able to really walk away with and say, this was worth my time. They've given me something that I can implement when I get back to my institution, or not?
Yeah, so from the two sessions that I spoke about earlier, the transfer session and then the managing and professional session, got a lot of great advice. Again, really on how to go about recruiting transfer students, especially being someone that hasn't done that side of recruitment before, but also on the back end of how to create an effective office environment. On the exhibitor side of things, one of the things I was most blown away by was a college search site very similar to Zinch and CapEx that pretty much switched the business model around. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, and it's killing me. It'll come to me, obviously, once we're done, of course.
Okay, well, make sure you tweet it out and let us know.
Yeah, will do. But yeah, they created a college search site where the buy-in is from the students instead of the colleges and universities. And so they make the majority of their money through advertising as well as student fees. And then on our side of the desk, we basically get to update our profile. They give us access to the student information that we need for building out our comm flows, free of cost. And that just blew me away. Absolutely blew me away.
Well, I'll be curious to hear who is doing that, and how many students they have, and what's cooking over there, because they certainly have some competition in that space, and not just the Zinches and the CapExes of the world, but like the College Confidential and College Prowler sites and all of that kind of stuff that's out there. There's so much out there, so but it's good to kind of keep our eyes on all of it so that we know what's hot and what's out. So please let us know about that, we are coming towards the end of our show. Not seeing any pressing questions from our Twitter audience, but I want to thank our folks who are not at a college fair somehow tonight at 7 o'clock and have the night off and have joined us live. So my last kind of closing question to you is, would you recommend this conference to your colleagues for next year? And if you would, who specifically do you think would benefit most from a conference like this?
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question, especially for Marlboro, where we operate on a relatively small budget. The first thing I said when I got back to my dean was that I don't know if it's worth attending every year, but definitely every other year. And then if we do send somebody, mainly to send, it'd be most effective for the dean to go, given the nature of the seminars. I found there were definitely a lot of interesting and informative seminars for me, but what I also found was that a lot of the seminars were geared specifically towards your higher ups, your deans, your directors, your associate deans and directors, and so that kind of, I guess, created a introductory gap for me and for what I found relevant and useful in my work.
Well, that is very, very helpful. And Chris, I want to thank you again so much for taking one of those precious fall nights that you have off to come and join me on Admissions Live. It was great to hear about the conference. I feel a little bit better having not gotten to attend myself. feeling kind of left out, but I feel like I've gotten the scoop from you now. And I look forward to staying in touch and hearing how everything goes with your transfer project this year. And it sounds like you do cool things with Google Plus too, so I'm going to be watching what you're doing once you get your hands on all of that stuff at Marlboro. We'll give you a little time to settle in first, though.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. You are welcome anytime. And I will be back to host Admissions Live again next week. As always, you can watch more shows from Admissions Pros on the Higher Ed Live archive. That just head over to higheredlive.com. Thank you for our audience again who snuck away from recruitment travel to join us live tonight, and we will see you next time.